Should I retire early? Early is somewhat subjective, but before I dive into how to answer that question or how I think about answering that question, a quick story, or rather, probably I'm going to very much butcher a retelling of a joke that Jeff Foxworthy tells about retirement, and so goes something like this. Well, he was talking to one of his coworkers the other day, and he asked, "Did you hear the news about Jimmy?" And he said, "No, I didn't hear the news. What happened?" He said, "Well, he ended up passing away a couple weeks ago." He said, "Oh man, he looked so good while he was working, and then he retired, and 2 weeks later, boom, he was dead." So the joke is that it's the retiring is what killed him. People said, "Oh, he should have retired sooner because he quit working," and it was actually the retiring that killed him. Okay, so I butchered that joke. Sorry. Thanks for making it through that with me. But I think it's an interesting point of view that it wasn't the working that killed him, but it was the retiring that killed him. And certainly, this is just some fictional person. Hopefully, God forbid you retire and someone retires and then passes away 2 weeks later. But you might have heard stories like that before. And so, thinking through should I retire early, I think has more ramifications than just financial ramifications. And so, I'd like to think through with you out loud, so to speak, how to ponder should you retire early, or should I retire early? One of the first things, of course, is are you able to actually retire early from a financial standpoint? Are you going to be able to live without working for the rest of your life? I met with someone, and he told me he was now working on his third time retiring, and uh, I kind of gently said, I don't think that you retired the first time. You just took maybe a long vacation, because retiring really is the ability to be able to not have to go back to work. This gentleman that I was talking to had to go back to work twice. He tried to stop and realized that he wasn't able to, and then had to go back to work, which is fine. That's fine if you need to go back to work or what have you. That happens. I've met with a lot of people because of the COVID stuff that have had to go back to work because they were kind of forced to retire early. But the first thing you want to be thinking about is, are you financially able to retire? And so to help think through that, there's two really big nuances to consider when you're talking about retiring early. And I'm going to quantify retiring early as anything before 65. 65 is generally around the retirement age. Social Security has some impact on that. Social Security, your full retirement benefit is at age usually between 65 and 67, depending on the year that you were born. However, are you able to retire? If you're talking about retiring early, there's really two key factors to consider financially, and then we'll talk about a couple other thoughts as well. But the first one is healthcare. Healthcare is something that a lot of people just don't really think about until maybe it's a little bit too late. And healthcare costs can be substantial. It's not prohibitive of being able to retire early, but if you're paying for your own personal health insurance before age 65, those costs can be quite substantial. And so having a game plan for how to handle that, there are, of course, one could use the healthcare exchanges through the Affordable Care Act. There are some subsidies and things of that nature for certain income qualifications, or you may just have to pay that out of pocket. But the nice thing with retiring, if you do retire early and you have saved some money, you have some assets, maybe a 401k or IRA or mutual funds, annuities, something of that nature, you can use some of that money possibly, and the taxation of that money maybe could help you be able to qualify for some of those Affordable Care Act subsidies and things of that nature. So the first unique consideration when it comes to retiring early is the healthcare cost, because that's going to look a lot different than if you're retiring at 65 and you have access to Medicare. Now, Medicare is its own complex animal, and that'll be another video for another day. But healthcare costs is one thing you really want to be sure of how you're planning to cover that, and adding that and planning for that. The other unique consideration of retiring early is for those that are retiring pre 59 and a half. Why did Congress choose 59 and a half? I don't know. I don't remember. I probably need to look it up and have a better answer for that. But as of right now, I'm not really quite certain why they chose 59 and a half, but nonetheless, that's the age that was chosen, and there are tax consequences if you take money out of your retirement accounts, so 401k, IRAs, before 59 and a half. And so if you want to retire early, hey, maybe you want to retire mid 50s or early 50s. You know, a lot of my millennials, I'm an old millennial. A lot of millennials want to retire early, but you have to think through, how are you saving your money? And then how's the money going to come out at retirement? Those that are a little bit closer to retirement, if you do want to stop early, there are ways to take income out of your accounts with avoiding those tax penalties. But you have to be very careful on how you structure things, and you really want to work with your financial advisor, tax advisor on doing that appropriately. So those are the two main considerations that I see that aren't necessarily thought about when it comes to that retiring early conversation, is the healthcare costs and the taxation ramifications. Those two things at the beginning stages of retirement certainly can play a big factor on if you should retire early, because really the question is, are you able to, and do you want to? And that's kind of the second component of this. Is there's the financial component, but then there's also the people component. And so when I think about retirement, that's really the ability to not have to go into work to be able to pay your living expenses. You are, some would say, financially independent. So you have enough money saved and invested, you have other income sources coming in where you can do basically whatever you want to do. That sounds pretty cool, right? But with that freedom, there are potential consequences or potential ramifications to think about. In particular, if you are running away from work. So some people, I've heard goals that talked about as far as running towards a goal, being able to get that next job, or being able to have a little more freedom and flexibility in your job, or there's certain goals. But when it comes to retirement, a lot of times people may be running away from work. Just they're burnt out, they're frustrated with the corporate bureaucracies, the red tape, and all of the things that frustrate us about working, especially when we're working for a big organization. So people a lot of times are running away from work rather than running to something. And as you're thinking about retirement, getting closer to that, I really try to encourage folks to think about what's going to drive you once you no longer have to work. You can only sit around and watch TV for so much time. And Lord knows we do not need, all of us do not need more consumption of the cable news network information, Fox News, CNN, all of that stuff. You can get your news wherever you want to, but all of them do seem to cause some anxiety and some angst amongst us. So you don't want that to be the plan. So what is the plan? Are you going to go and serve and volunteer? Are you going to go spend more time with the grandkids? Are you going to maybe start some sort of business? Or are you going to do some mentoring? It doesn't have to be all day. It doesn't have to be your full schedule. But I find that people find a lot of value once they retire in finding something that's going to give them a little bit more meaning, a little bit more purpose, something more to wake up for than just watching the news or watching TV. Of course, if that's what you want to do, go for it. But I just know that eventually you're probably going to get tired of that. And so if you're retiring early, it just amplifies that problem, because now you have, maybe instead of 10, 20 years of it, you have 20, 30, 40 years of doing that. And so really thinking through, what does that next phase look like when you have more time on your hands? How will you spend that? How will you use it wisely for the time that you have left? And so that's how I would start to think about, should I retire early, both the financial side and the people side of it as well, because we are people, we're emotional beings, we're social beings, and we need some of these other things that's more than just money. And so I would urge you to think through that as you're making your plans and thinking through your strategies and all of that. Not only worry about the financial side, but also thinking about what does that next stage of life look like. So my name is Kyle Newell. I am a financial planner. I own Newell Wealth Management, which is a fee-only financial planning firm here in Winter Garden. I serve the greater Orlando area, and I also am able to help clients nationally through virtual, through Zoom. Technology is just a wonderful thing. I have clients, or I can serve clients all over the country. And if you found this video helpful, or you want to understand how does this apply to your situation, I certainly would be happy to meet with you. There's no cost for an initial meeting. You can drop a comment or send me a message, and we can set up a time, or you can go to my website, newellwm.com. So that's NEWELLWM, which stands for wealthmanagement.com, newellwm.com. And I'd be happy to set up a time to meet with you. I have a calendar link right on there. It's pretty easy to set up a time to chat. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, this video obviously is just for educational purposes only. No specific advice, tax advice, financial advice has been given. And because I don't know you, I'm just talking through a screen right now, right? So hopefully we can maybe meet in person or over the phone or via Zoom, and maybe be able to give you a little bit more specifics from there. But otherwise, I hope you found value in what I talked about today. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, and hope to see you real soon. Take care.